Happy February, everyone. January is finally behind us, and I'm here to celebrate this with talking about the books I've read in January. I do like sitting inside reading when it's cold outside, and it hasn't stopped being cold or dark, but I will celebrate either way. And I started this celebration with reading the 5th book in the series about Jonah Linna, a detective, by Lars Kepler. This is called Stalker, probably called Stalker in English as well, and this is my go-to crime fiction. It's a long time since last time I read a crime fiction novel, and I thought this would be an easy way into the new year. And it truly was. I feel like it's basically the same thing over and over again. It's young detectives that are really, really good, but they're sort of struggling with this one case, and suddenly our hero appears out of nothing, and they barely make it each time. And it's just comforting, fun, and exciting. Like the thing that varies between these books is the amount of suspense they add. And, well, sort of loses a bit of suspense for each of the books because I know that everything will be okay. And yeah, I think the first books were more suspenseful in that way, but I still very much enjoy these books, and I will continue to read this series. It's like I pick them up when I find them at a flea market, and that keeps on happening. So I just buy one at a time. I could have bought all 9, I think there are, but I am just waiting for the next one and the next one, and I will continue this thing. Then I picked up a book on my Kindle called Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. It's an almost true memoir about herself, I think she calls it, and I'm a bit conflicted. I laughed a little bit. I did enjoy the tone of it at times, but at towards the end it got a little bit too much of look how crazy I am, look at all the crazy shit I did. And well, that's true, but if you have too much self-irony, at some point it reaches a stage where it's just a little bit too much, and you sort of half feel bad for her at the same time as you feel like she's overcompensating by trying to be funny, and it's just not funny anymore. And she does crazy stuff. She buys stuff that I never would have bought. She irritates her husband, and she irritates this husband in a way that they both seem to enjoy it. Maybe I just would have struggled being around this person for a prolonged period of time. And I get how people might enjoy reading about a person like this, thinking that, wow, this is madness. I could never have done those things. But I could never have been around a person like that for a prolonged period of time if she did the things that she did towards her husband. And, well, they seem to be happy, so I'm glad for them. Also in the same sphere or in the same tone as the rest of it, there are a lot of moments where it's like, this happened, and then, just kidding, this is what really happened. And I just get tired of those kinds of mind games. What's the point? I don't get it. It didn't feel like that way of writing was for me, just spending a lot of pages on nothing. Or it feels like, for me, this might differ in your heads, but when reading a memoir where you write something and then just kidding, I feel like I could just erase that thing. It didn't happen in my mind as either, but I spent time reading about it, but it's now invaluable. No, not valuable. Not valuable. That's what I'm trying to say. After reading this, I made a note to myself that it feels like reading a novel about the life lessons you'll never use. And that's probably why I also won't read any of her other books if they're in the same sort of genre. But this being said, I did laugh in the beginning. I just went a bit empty towards the end. And I do have some of the same feelings about this book. It's Taylor Jenkins Reid, Daisy Jones and the Six. It's about this 70s band and intrigues in that band. It feels very much like reading about Fleetwood Mac, only that it's more boring and it's not real. So what is the point? I've never read a Fleetwood Mac memoir or a autobiography or anything like that, but I've watched a ton of documentaries, and there's just more fun in those than in this one, and thus it feels like this is not needed at all. I do really like reading music memoirs, and recently I made a video about why I like memoirs, so if you're interested you can check that one out. But to me this just felt ridiculous, as sort of like a TV show version of a band memoir where you get contradictions in real time. So one person says something crazy and then another person in the next paragraph says, well, that's not what happened. Sort of like an interview style thing, as if they were making a documentary, and they sort of were, I guess. But I'm not going to spend more time talking about this. There were a lot of moments where I felt like just, why are you writing about this? This doesn't deserve to be a thing in this novel. And sometimes stuff happened and I thought, well, this is certainly going to lead somewhere, but no, it wasn't. So I gave this, and talking about it now, I gave this 2 out of 5 stars, and I do not feel that that was the right thing to do. I hope I gave it 1.5 stars on Storygraph at least. This made me feel like I could get rid of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books from my shelves, so that will save me some space. I also get that this book isn't written for me, but I think I'm especially disappointed since I do like reading about bands. There are fictionalized stories about bands that I do enjoy. If you want to read about a 70s band, go read a book about Fleetwood Mac. There's a lot more drama and craziness in the real life stories.
You probably realize now that what you're hearing and what you're seeing isn't really the same thing. It's not in sync, you might say, and that's because I screwed up. So here I am making this voiceover. Luckily for us all, this specific book I'm talking about now, The History of Bestiality, is one that I already made a separate book review of on my channel. So if you're interested in this Norwegian classic, I would check that one out. And I suggest that we just continue to the next book. So head on over to the next video if you want to see that one. Let's continue.
After reading The History of Bestiality, I wasn't sure what I was going to read. I just knew that it was going to be shorter. So I chose Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This is about a 36-year-old woman that works in a convenience store, and according to Japanese society, that's quite crazy. Why on earth would you have a job like that at such an age if you're not married? And you get the feeling that either there's something wrong with this woman, or she might be an alien or something like that. At least she really struggles to get, how do I say this? She struggles to find her place in the world. Human emotions she has no concept of, so she just tries to mimic other people to understand how things work, or just to be left alone. And you get the feeling from the start that there's something other to it, but you really don't know what's the thing going on. And fascinating. It's sort of magical realism, but not at all. I'm not capable of giving this a proper review. I really did like it, because I all the way through wondered, what is this really about? So it's a novel without... It has some strange characters. It doesn't really lead anywhere, but it sort of feels like that something is going to happen, and I can't tell you if something happened or didn't happen, but I did enjoy it. Also, it reflects a lot about how we treat people, how we think about other people, and how the Japanese society specifically is quite strict. It's useful to read stuff like this to get a refresh on how we might view other people. Also, it's funny, it has moments where I laughed, and just an enjoyable novel, and really short, so time will fly by quickly if you read it. So I do recommend. Then it's dagen, Nils Vik, døde by Frode Grytten. This was kindly sent to me by the publisher, and it's about the last day in the life of Nils Vik. So he basically wakes up one day and thinks that, well, this is the last day I'll be alive. And we get to follow along. But it feels more like we get a recap of his life rather than just the last day that he's alive. Sort of jumps back and forth, or Maybe it's impossible to say, but that was my feeling when reading this novel. It has gotten a lot of praise, and I absolutely loved it. When I started to read it, it feels like you're just dragged into a movie of sorts, because your mind just makes up this vivid pictures of the landscape, the people, and the feelings that are involved. And that rarely happens to me, but for some books it just instantly happens, and this is one of those. I felt more like I was watching a mental movie than reading a book. And it's the way he describes people, and he doesn't really talk that much about his feelings, but just the way he describes how stuff happened makes me sentimental. And, well, that's a good sign. In many ways, the book is quite ordinary, so the people are ordinary, the stuff that happens is quite ordinary, so it's just up to how it's written about, and, well, that's where the magic happens. I've read Bikubesong earlier, Song of the Beehive, can't remember if that's translated or not. Did enjoy that because of the humor. In this, it's not that much humor, but it makes you smile, even though it's very sentimental at times. And yeah, I just enjoyed being in this book quite a lot. Might have something to do with the fact that it's written about a small place by the fjords, which is a landscape I do enjoy. That's a positive. Other than that, it just makes you reflect on how beautiful life can be sometimes, and how beautiful the small stuff can be. And, well, I just love this book. So that's the last book I read this month as well, which is quite okay. I have 3 books going on at the moment. I thought I would finish all 3 before this month ended. That didn't happen at all, so maybe next month will be quite a stacky month. Is that the word? Maybe I'll read more books next month. That is what I'm trying to say. But I'm really happy that I had 1 5-star read this month, and also 2 other books that I did quite enjoy. So that's that. As always, I am really intrigued to hear which book you like the most this month, so do comment below. And if you like these videos, please consider subscribing. Numbers are fun, and in this format, higher numbers are more fun. So do that if you want to. I hope you have a terrific day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!